It's now live, Bento Bureau.
Itadakimasu! Welcome to Bento Bureau, the show about Japan from an international perspective with a side dish of socio-political discussion. I'm the host, Bastian Hart, and with me today is...
Hi, I'm Hazel.
And...
Good evening, my name is Jess.
And today we're going to talk about the US military in Japan. And for that we have two very special guests with us. On my right...
Hi, I'm Greico Stefan Kelly.
And on my left...
How you doing? I'm Cordell Rankin.
Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope we can have a very nice discussion with you guys. And we would like to ask you some questions, but of course we are up for any kind of discussion. So if you want to, say something, just say that. But I guess we start with a simple introduction. So why don't we start with Greico? Please introduce yourself, talk a little bit about yourself, and how long have you been in Japan? Those kind of questions.
Okay. Well, my name is Greico. I originally came to Japan in 2010. And I stayed till 2012. And that's when I was working in Iwakuni, Japan for the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And now I'm 25, going on 26.
Thank you. And...
All right. I was originally stationed in Japan in 2010 as well, until 2013. I was stationed in Kanagawa in Camp Zama in the Army. And now I'm here, living a civilian life.
How long have you been in the military?
Been in the military for 16 years.
16 years.
Yeah.
And stationed in Japan for how long?
3 years.
3 years,
Yes.
okay. And overall, you have been in Japan for how long?
All over 6 years.
6 years. Greico, you were 3 years, right?
It was it was about 3 years.
About 3 years. All right, okay. Why did you choose to join the military in the first place? Cordell.
Well, for me, I was born and raised in Chicago, and for everybody who don't know, Chicago is a very rough place in America, especially for minority youth. And I grew up in the 90s, so it was a really tough time. And as a kid, as a child, I wanted to see more of the world. Like, I had a very adventurous spirit, and so. After high school, a lot of my friends went to college, in various states. I wanted to have more of an adventure, so I chose to go into the Army. That was like the quickest way for me to get out of Chicago and see different parts of the world and everybody else's culture instead of, seeing it on television. So that was my reason.
At what age did you join the Army?
I joined the Army, and it was a delayed program, so I went in at 17 and did part of my training and finished up when I was 18. And that's when I joined.
All right, thank you very much. And how about you, Greico? Why did you join the military?
Well, similar reasons as Cordell. Is that correct?
Mm.
Okay, similar reasons. For one, I always like to travel. And my family, for the most part, they all lived in Virginia and North Carolina. So that's where I spend most of my time. I did the same thing as him, the delayed entry program. And I actually went in active at 18, maybe 1 or 2 months after I graduated high school.
Mm.
And what age?
18.
18 as well. And what is this delayed entry program exactly?
Well, it's a program for when you're still in high school.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
It's to get you ready to actually enter.
Yeah, do part during the summer and then finish up high school. Once you graduate, then you can go in and finish the rest.
Okay.
So when do you have to apply for this program? Like when you have to sign up for this program?
Well, it's a volunteer system we have in America for the military. So you walk up and make your intentions known, take various tests or whatever, and decide on what you want to do. Depending on your aptitude test, of course. But yeah.
And where were you stationed before in your life?
Oh man, I have a long list. Like I said, I was in for like 16 years, so I have a long list of different duty stations. Not just abroad, but been to your homeland of Germany, Deutschland. I've been to Korea, been to Japan, been to the Middle East a few times. Kuwait, Qatar, I said Kuwait, Iraq, all over the states, from California to Texas to Louisiana, New York, and Colorado.
Wow, yeah, that's a world trip. How about you, Greico?
Well, for me, I only did 4 years, so I had 2 duty stations, and I was stationed both times, meaning that I didn't relocate to different stations during that time. And the only 2 stations I had was Iwakuni, Japan, as I said before, and Cherry Point, North Carolina. Both air stations. So.
Okay. And the last question I would like to ask is just, why did you both retire from the Army, basically, or the Marine Corps?
Well, I didn't retire per se, but yes, I got out because I actually wanted to do more traveling than what I was doing in the military.
And how about you?
Well, mine's a real complicated answer, but to be totally candid with you, I lost faith in what I was doing. I no longer believed in myself as the good guy. After numerous years of seeing hardship on other countries, when I first came in, it was right before the Twin Towers fell on 9/11, and I was actually stationed in Fort Hood, Texas then, and I thought that we were gonna do good, like every young person that was in the military, but throughout the years, I started feeling like I was losing a piece of myself and, my morality as a human being. And I decided to leave. I became a father for the first time, and I was about to have a second child. So I had to make a decision. And so I decided to, live my life for my children and try to maintain a little bit of my humanity that was left.
Oh, that's a deep story. So I want to ask something about how you're stationed in the military. Do you get to choose which country you'll be stationed at, or is it selected by an elite or someone else in the military?
Well, as far as I can say, a very common saying was the needs of the Marine Corps. So you pretty much go where they needed you.
Okay.
So for me, I did firefighting. So that was in Texas as well. And upon graduation, they pretty much said, do you want to go East Coast or West Coast? Me, I was like, oh, well, I heard someone went to Japan. I would like to go there. They're like, oh, that's perfect. You're going there. So that worked out for me. And I had a friend of mine that said he wanted to go East Coast in the U.S. side. And he also ended up in Japan. So it's pretty much the needs of the Marine Corps. You don't really choose per se. Even my second duty station, I said the one place I didn't want to go was Cherry Point. And the one place they sent me was Cherry Point. So it's set up, it goes through one office per se, but it's pretty much whatever they need. That's what you're going to do.
I see.
This is somewhat irrelevant with my dad. He's a firefighter, so.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
I was surprised. I didn't know you were working as a firefighter.
Yeah, it was strictly aircraft for me. Well, we did some building, but our focus was aircraft.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's good. That's a good profession.
I wanted to ask that question because I wanted to know, what were your impressions of Japan before you came here?
Well, for me, if you don't mind. Yeah, for me, I'm a little older than the people sitting around this panel. A little more seasoned. And so I'm an 80s baby. And growing up in the 80s, it was a much different world than what y'all grew up in. And in the 80s, it was everything was coming from Japan. Everything was, made in Japan. A lot of television shows that I was watching as a child, it was like remakes of Japanese shows. And you know, back then, like, everything was really cool coming out of Japan. You know, everything involving like ninjas, like Ninja Turtles, and you know, 3 ninja movies. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh man, this place seems awesome. You know, and I always wanted to, you know, see how people live in Japan, and you know what I'm saying. That was one of the biggest factors for me coming here. But there's a little more, you know, in-depth story. I don't know if y'all have time for that, but so I'll leave that for another day.
How about you, Greico?
Well, kind of similar. But yeah, I just found an interest in Japan. I wanted to see the society. And whenever I thought about where I wanted to go to first travel-wise, other than South America, Japan was my first choice. And I love Asians.
Okay.
Oh, man, I feel I had to put that out there. If you want me to be honest, that was like a something.
Yeah, one of the best parts about Japan for me, man, was honestly, I view the Japanese people and their culture as warriors. You know, that rung out to me. I know I joke about the ninja thing, but, you know, like, to be honest, you know, a lot of the literature that I read about Japan in the past, like, you know, I don't know if I say it correctly, but Shingoku period?
Sengoku?
Right. And, you know, a lot of the, you know, samurai stories, that intrigued me, man.
Like The Last Samurai?
Nah. How was Tom Cruise The Last Samurai, man? You know, but, you know, a lot of those stories, man, they intrigued me so much. And I was like, wow, these people are magical, you know what I mean? And I'm not, you know, saying that to be condescending. I just felt like, man, these people were amazing, and I wanted to be a part. I wanted to see that with my own 2 eyes. And that was part of the mystique for Japan for me.
So how did your impression change over the time?
All right, that's a real good question. So, you know, when I got here, I was really kind of in a dark place in my life. You know, so I had some real traumatic things happen, and I had just finished with my 3rd tour in the Middle East, and so I was in a place where I really was kind of fed up with the Army and the military life, but I had a few years left on my contract, so I had to do it. And so, you know, it was like a bittersweet thing for me when I came to Japan. So when I got here, I was like amazed. You know, I was still in awe that I was here, first and foremost. And the second thing, I was like, oh my God, it is way too humid in this country. I want to leave. And that was my first impressions of being here. But, you know, being able to travel and see things, it helped alleviate that a lot, you know. And my impressions here was just amazing, man. It lived up to every promise. Like, the Japanese people have been amazing hosts. Has some issues, but, you know, it's, you know, that's easily overlooked. You know what I mean? The culture, I still love the fact that people are still very honorable here for the most part. You know, and they, you know, for example, I lost my wallet here, my first month here, and my wallet was returned to me with everything in it.
We hear these stories a lot, yeah.
And another good story is like, you know, when I first got to Kanagawa, I took the train trying to explore, and I got lost. And I mean, I was lost, dude. Like, I counted the stops thinking it was, you know, similar to Chicago trains, you know. And I went to Machida, I think the place was, and I was counting the stops, and then I took the train back, 3 stops, but it was the wrong stop, you know. And I'm like, I didn't know any Japanese. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have any numbers to call, even if I did have a phone. So I'm like, sumimasen. I'm just going to random people like, sumimasen. Can you help me? You know, and everybody's like, and just passing me by, you know, just pass me by. And I don't know any Japanese. All I know is sumimasen. And so finally, this one Japanese lady, I'll never forget her, man, God bless her heart. This lady stopped and said, excuse me, do you need help? And, you know, I'm like, yes. And what she did, like, she I told her where I was from, what stop I was looking for. This lady got on the train with me and rode all the way to that stop to make sure I made it back safely without getting lost again.
That's incredible.
Yeah, amazing people, the Japanese people.
There's just one question I must ask you, and you can keep it very short.
Yes.
Did you like Germany or Japan?
Man, this is gonna shock you guys, man. But
I'm joking.
I love Deutschland. That was my favorite place of all my duty stations. That was my favorite place. They literally had to force me to leave Germany.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, they had to force me to leave.
That's good to hear. Okay, let's come back to that later, maybe. How about you? How did your impression change about Japan?
Well, when I first got here, I was 19. Like, I had just turned 19. So I was really in that point in my life where I just wanted to go out and do a lot of stupid stuff for the most part. And
For example?
well, it was my first time fully leaving home, fully leaving the nest, you know. So when I first landed here, I landed in Narita, and then I had to transfer to Haneda. I didn't know that was two different airports for one.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no idea what was going on. So once I got to Haneda, I flew to Hiroshima. And in Hiroshima, I believe it was pretty close to nighttime. And I didn't understand how anything worked. I had all my bags. And I actually got help from another military family that was there. And they drove me to the Iwakuni base, which was awesome. So my first general impression was that it'd be difficult, but I was looking forward to it at the same time.
Yeah.
The way that's changed was I pretty much had like very awkward moments here in Japan, and it surprised me. For example, I went to a bar, and I was sitting there drinking, talking to everyone else that was in the military that I work with, and there was like a flash behind me. So I was like, okay. So I ignored it. It happened maybe 2 more times. I turned around, and there's a Japanese girl like this behind me, taking photos with me. So yeah, like it was a very interesting point in my life when I first came here.
So, thank you for your answer, but how do you guys assimilate into the lifestyle of Japan in general and the new military base in particular?
The new military base?
So you're
Yeah,
stationed in a, when you come here, you're stationed in a...
You mean in a new
different-
environment?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, for example, what is your experience like here? Being stationed on an American military base here in Japan, and what kind of duties do you actually have?
Okay, to bluntly put it, like maybe for example, your first time adjusting to using chopsticks or something of the sort.
I mean, we use chopsticks in America. I mean, I don't know about you, but like in Chicago, I've used chopsticks before. You know,
To a degree. I mean, you didn't use it as much as you do here, obviously.
I mean, true, but you know,
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't anything to really get used to adjust to.
yeah.
I suppose the biggest adjustment for me was when you leave base, the mentality of the people.
Oh
So
yeah.
That was a pretty big adjustment to me. On base is nothing. It's
Yeah, on base it's the same.
you can work with that. It's like a little America.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of base, that's where you're in Japan.
I think for me, the biggest adjustment I had to do is to learn like Japanese etiquette. You know, you bring up the chopsticks. It was like I knew how to use the chopsticks, but I didn't know about Japanese etiquette. You know what I mean? Like not stabbing rice with your chopsticks or passing food with your chopsticks, you know, and taking your shoes off whenever you come in the house, you know. Like little things like that, you know. My biggest one was the escalators. I know that sounds weird, yeah, but you know they are really deep on standing to the left, and if you go on the right, walk up the escalator. When in the States, I can just stand there, you know. So I'm a big guy, so my first time taking the escalator, I just ride the escalator. I just stand there, even though I'm on the right hand side. So people were getting upset, but nobody says anything. You know, it's really passive here, and I was like, that's awesome. But you know, things like getting accustomed to that was different for me.
So you brought that up, Greico. How are the interactions between the U.S. military, the people who are stationed there, and actually Japanese people, the local people around the military?
Well, the same way you have different people out in Japan, you have different people on base.
Mm.
So the way that everyone interacts is going to be different altogether. From my own experience, I would say that I've seen the good and the bad side of how people feel about the military being here. And initially, it was all good. Like, when you first leave base, everyone's used to you already. The places that they have set up are set there to cater to the military. So you don't really get that bad of an impression. When you go further out, for example, Hiroshima, it's still a big tourist area. So you do get a pretty normal vibe, but they're also used to military.
Mhm.
So I suppose it's all situation based.
Mm.
But I've had the good and the bad sides of it.
What do you think about that?
How about you, Cordell?
You know, it's funny you should say that. I remember when I was stationed in Zama in Kanagawa. Every Wednesday, like clockwork, we always had these protests in front of the main gate, and it's always these Japanese ladies, man, really old ladies, but they were super sweet. You know, they always wear like sun hats and they have signs like "No nuclear bombs, no more tanks in Japan." You know, and I was like, wow, you know, like, you know, what we got going on here? You know, I was always asking people like, why are they protesting? You know, but you know, they had their views like we were doing harm to Japan. And one day I sat and talked to one of the ladies. One of them spoke English, you know, so I crossed the street and sat and talked with her for a little bit and, you know, got her perspective. And once she, you know, spoke with me and we gained an understanding amongst ourselves, you know, and I was like, well, I understand where you're coming from. You know, you don't want to kind of feel like you occupied anymore, is where she was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't want you to feel that way. Like, you know, understand that we here to help, you know, for the most part. You know, America protection is a big thing for Japan. It's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a big thing for Japan in this region, you know. So I always express to people that, you know, we're not all of us should be portrayed as the big bad bully. You know, like a lot of American people and military people really care. You know, for example, during the March 11th earthquake, I was one of the few people who volunteered to help the Japanese. You know what I'm saying? And like out of all of the awards that I received in the military, the one award that I'm the most proud of is my Humanitarian Award that I received from doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was at what time?
The March 11th earthquake.
March 11th. So Fukushima meltdown and the earthquake. And
the tsunami and everything. Mm-hmm. So I was one of a few people that volunteered to help the Japanese doing that. You know, and when, you know, I explain that to people, you know, their reaction is always really great because they're like, oh man, thank you for helping Japan. Thank you for helping Japan. And I was like, you know, I don't want you to thank me. You know, we here to help you guys, you know. Our countries are friends. And we more of us have to express that, I think.
So, Greico, you mentioned that the life inside the base and outside the base are very drastically different, right?
Yes.
So, are there any rules or regulations that the base imposes on the residents of the base?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yes, there are. Like, for example, there's the Liberty system. I suppose that'd be the biggest regulation in place. And that's pretty much saying that if you're below a certain rank, that you can't leave base without someone else with you. And it's a 2-card system.
Mm-hmm.
So once you reach a certain rank, you're allowed to go out by yourself and come back by yourself. Mm-hmm. So that is probably the biggest example I can give you of rules and regulations. But yes, there are many, because when you first get there, they say that you are an ambassador.
And you are. You are.
They try really hard to actually keep everyone in line.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible to keep everyone on the watch 100% of the time, but they do what they can.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't mind, I'd like to put that in a little more context.
Yes, please.
All right, so that is a fairly new thing for Japan because, and the reason behind that, we had a lot of bad publicity, with various crimes committed by military personnel and American civilian, personnel. And that was due to, those individual, choices that those people made. And so in order to rectify that, the military kind of put these parameters around to protect not just ourselves, but, to make the Japanese people, in my opinion, feel more comfortable. Mm-hmm. Because even though Japan has its own crime, it does, the moment an American does anything in Japan, that is big news. Mm. And that will be pushed. Mm. All right, so when he says that we are ambassadors, that is true in every sense of the word. Because what we do reflects on not just ourselves, but the military and our country.
Have you experienced any kind of incidents which were basically published in the news before? Or during the time you served?
Do you know anyone that had that experience?
Yes, but, that's their personal story, and I won't speak on that at all.
No, okay, that's of course.
Yeah.
So, with those incidents, what do you guys think are the relationships between right now the US and Japan actually about the military bases here in Japan? What do you think about that?
I think it's beneficial for both parties. We employ, and when I say we, we as the military, and I'm speaking, for myself, what I saw, we employ a lot of Japanese people, and we help with the economy in Japan. Like, I know a big deal right now is Okinawa. If you look at how many people are employed and the local economies where like people go out and have drinks or buy food and clothes, it's pushing more money into your local economy. So, it's beneficial for both parties, and I think the relations between some Japanese people, because I'm not going to say all, and one rule that I like to use, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, just stop.
No,
but one rule that I like to use is I judge people off of the people I know. I'm not going to judge Japanese people off of what I see on television or in the movies or, what somebody else said. I'm going to judge people off the people that I know. You are representing Japanese people. So every experience that I had with Japanese people, I'm like, wow, it's been a good experience. So I judge people off of that, right? And I want people to do the same. I talk to Jess sometimes. I was telling him, like, a lot of people might see me, I'm a big guy, you know what I mean? I have my tattoos, I have my art, and, some people might judge me for that. But when they sit down and talking to a lot of our Japanese coworkers, I said, how do you feel about me? You're amazing, is what they say. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, you wouldn't speak to me. There's been plenty of times where I like to sit on a train. I don't know if y'all had this experience yet, but you sit on a train and no one will sit in that seat next to you.
It happens.
For sure.
And I was like, wow, that kind of made me feel a certain kind of way. And I just to get back to the point, is that I think that if we speak to each other and, get to know each other, that would alleviate a lot of the relation issues that we have. A lot more Japanese and American people as friends, not just, co-workers, you know what I mean? Like, actually go out and explore each other's cultures, stuff like that. We have similar things in Germany, Like,
all right, yeah, for sure we do.
What are your thoughts, Greico?
Can I get a recap on the question?
Between the issue, what do you think of the relationship between Japan and the U.S.?
Okay. Well, similar to what was being said already, I also think that it's beneficial to both parties. However, I can also understand the other side of the argument that they would rather us not be so ingrained
Mm-hmm.
in their government, for example. The biggest issue I can think of is military. That's one issue I can actually see both sides to. But yes, I do agree that we help with the economy.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that we employ.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also had the pleasure of working with many of the SDF while I was actually stationed in Iwakuni.
Oh, really?
And it's a very interesting experience. But I see how it's beneficial to both parties.
And plus, you know, you don't have to spend that much on your defense. I mean, you got us here. You know?
From what I understand, the tension between the American military and the Japanese people, it's not just about the crimes. It's also about problems like environment, pollution, and noise pollution.
I think the noise pollution was like
Yeah,
the biggest
and
one.
So
in
what do you
Okinawa.
think about that? Like, is there any way to, solve the problem?
I think noise pollution is a very serious thing, you know, and people deserve to be heard about that. But I do feel that it is unfair to always point the finger at the U.S. military when you have places as close as the Japanese Air Force base around here, you know, where you have flights all day long. But that doesn't get the attention because it's Japanese. But the moment, you know, American bases makes any kind of noise, it's a big deal. And I'm not saying it's not legitimate. I'm not saying that at all. I just feel that from what I've seen, I think that my government and my military, they all have done a lot to try to accommodate, you know, the local populace.
Well, in regards to that, I think it comes down to cultural difference and society as well. For example, living here now, I've run into more issues than I have as military. And that's probably because of the location and considering that there's not a U.S. military over here, a little base over here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is one in Fusa, but right here in this area. And in regards to that, I lived on the second floor of an apartment building. And if I ever made noise, I would get the police called on me. Or else my neighbor that lived downstairs threw a party every night. Never anything got said to him. So I can see where you're coming from in regards to if it's an American. But I can also see it just being a foreigner. Maybe they feel they can't talk to us directly, so they'll rather get someone else to do it for them.
Mm. Mm.
And in regards to another issue that I saw was actually noise pollution.
Mm-hmm.
I can agree with that for the military. And what I can say about that is when I was stationed in Iwakuni, there was also a protest, and I believe it was the Ospreys, the aircraft that have vertical takeoff. And that was actually a big issue. And I'm not sure if that was for the hazard because they didn't know if it would actually crash or not. And I'm pretty sure that happened in Okinawa, if I'm not mistaken. But when they
You
first...
have to be sure about that because I don't want to put the wrong
when-
information out.
When they first came in, I remember that they didn't want them put together. And I can understand that. Yeah, I didn't know anything about the actual connection or how everything was going, so I can't really comment too much on that. But I do see some concern, but I also think it's really a cultural difference.
I would like to move to a little bit a different topic. Right now with the new Trump administration, for example, I just would like to ask you both, what do you think, or how is the military's position and the US-Japan alliance going to change in the next, let's say, 10, 20 years? what are your conceptions, your beliefs?
And, man, that's a tough.
It's a tougher question.
Tough question.
Maybe I have some.
And
ideas.
I don't want to kind of speculate about things, but in my own opinion, I think that America and Japanese ties will continue to be strong. I think that as an American and a veteran, I respect the fact that our democracy has spoken, the people have spoken and voted in President Trump, and I will respect that. And I believe that the rest of the world will have to respect that as well. Some people might not like it, but this is democracy, and that's what we fight for, right? And as far as the relations between America and Japan, like I said, my personal beliefs that it will continue to remain strong. We always have, and all, been a friend to Japan, and we will continue to be that. And I think it's vice versa.
Okay. Well, I can't foretell the future. I'm not really sure where it's going, but I do agree that in regards to President Trump, I respect his position. Well, the position he was voted into. And as far as the impact it'll have on U.S.-Japan relations, I don't really know, but I don't think it's going to go in a negative way, personally.
And one other question I would like to ask. You kind of touched upon that already, but there has been a lot of discussion, of course, if the U.S. should take away its military bases in South Asia, or rather in Asia completely, let's say specifically in Japan. What do you think about that standpoint or that point of view?
I mean, in addition to that, there is the development of the self-defense force from Japan. So Article 9 is sort of changing in some way.
Well, that's still in the process. Like, it hasn't changed, but taking away the U.S. military from this region, and I'm just, like I said, speaking in my opinion, I would think would be a bad idea. Like, I think that having a military presence here helps in numerous ways, and I think that a lot of countries can and will benefit from that.
In regards to the Article 9 revision or interpretation, I do see that the U.S. is attempting to help strengthen Japan forces. And I say that from experience because I know that they train together, for example, in order to help them with their processes.
Yeah, a lot of bilateral training.
Yeah, there's a lot of training happening there. So in that respect, I can see the U.S. is trying to strengthen Japan's capabilities. But I also see I can imagine, just in my opinion, I can imagine the impact that removing the U.S. military here will actually have on the region. And I'm not sure, I don't imagine that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, and especially in light of this whole North Korea thing. So, yeah.
But I do see that my country is still in the process of helping the Japanese military.
So in case of the self-defense force, the SDF, how would you assess the major difference between the U.S. military and the SDF? Do you see any differences or similarities?
I see a lot of similarities. A lot of similarities. Us as Americans, we have the capability of being anywhere in the world in a short period of time. All right, not a lot of countries have that luxury. All right, I was reading an article, I believe it was in the Japan Times. Well, actually, I think it was CNN, sorry, on how Japan is capable of standing against, at this point in time, standing against any military in the world. They have those capabilities, and I can attest to that because I had to train with the Japanese as well when I was in the military. I think that the Japanese people, I mean, the SDF trains hard, and like, man, they're superb fighting force.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have top of the line equipment, and they are prepared. Mm-hmm. You know, one of my best friends, he's still in the SDF, and like, I can honestly, he just recently returned from a mission, you know, in Africa, and like, I can honestly say, man, these people are prepared.
So I need to.
I can't talk about his mission.
Huh?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just need to add. So there's this idea that because the self-defense force was always there just to defend, and now after the amendment of Article 9, even though it hasn't happened yet, they're actually able to basically get involved into a fight. Do you think they're experienced enough, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I said, I think they train hard, and they train as they fight, or as they would fight. Mm-hmm. I think recently in the news they were talking about how the Japanese, I forget the name of the Navy force, but they went out with one of our destroyers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's a good example. Mm-hmm. You know, I like to see stuff like that. You know, I like to have our allies with us. You know, I love to see that. Mm-hmm. You know, so, you know, when it comes to being prepared to fight, yeah, like, I think they're ready. Like, I would not want to fight. Me personally, I would not want to fight them. You know? I'm glad we're on the same side now. That's what I'm saying.
How about you, Greico?
Well, I also see many similarities, but I also see many differences. The biggest difference I can attest to is, well, in my opinion, I believe that if Japan actually did get involved, like, or boots on the ground, the biggest impact I see it having would be on the people of Japan. And that's the biggest difference I see in regards to the two countries. My country is, well, the U.S. We're not stranger to wartime. That much, I'm pretty sure we can all agree to. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be the biggest difference, the mentality that the people would have. And while my country is not like, oh, let's do it, I don't really see the Japanese people at this time dealing with it very well. The loss of life and stuff along those lines. That's the biggest difference I can say. But yes, as I said before, the Japanese military does train hard, and they are training, and they're still building their capabilities. But once their capabilities get built up to a point, I still see the biggest issue would be the people and whether they support going out or not.
And what do you think? They don't support the idea that the military actually goes out there and fights, or defends?
Well, defending, I can understand the Japanese, I can imagine the Japanese people being all for defending their homeland, defending their country. But I think once it gets to the point where they need to go somewhere else and do something, not such as humanitarian acts, but I'm not sure how to word it exactly.
Yeah.
But I think the mentality would be vastly different.
I think it would be okay, to be honest with you. You know, if I can be totally candid, you know, you look at the self-defense force, it's been around for a while. You know, these guys, and they haven't been just sitting on their hands, I'm sure. You know, and you look at things like, when you say defense, you look at, you know, this North Korea threat. You know, you're firing off missiles close to Japan, over Japan. Eventually, you're going to have to, you know, look at that. You know what I mean? I can imagine like what some of the things that are being said amongst the Japanese people. You know what I mean? Like, they see things on the news, they see it. You know, a lot of people might be afraid of it. Like, even with my job, I have, you know, in my civilian job over here, I speak to Japanese people all day, every day. And a lot of them ask me, you know, what do you think about this thing with North Korea? What do you think? I think Japan's going to be just fine. I think they're going to deal with it. Like, I have faith in the Japanese government. You know, I would not be here or have my children here if I did not, you know. So I think they're more than prepared, you know, and, you know, it's just a matter of time before they're going to have to show it, you know. God forbid that day, though.
Oh, let's hope that no war breaks out or something like that.
Hey, no, it
Just
happens.
out of curiosity, you said that you train with Japanese people.
Mm-hmm.
So are they the SDF force or, you know, a different force? The Japanese army that you trained with?
Yeah, it's
are they-
always the self-defense force.
So how is the interaction between the military, the American military, and the SDF?
It's pretty awesome, you know, pretty awesome. And, you know, it's not just a, you know, Japanese thing, you know what I mean? Like I said, I've been to a few countries. Like, we partner up with the ROK soldiers in Korea, the Republic of Korean soldiers, German soldiers. You know, I had a chance to, you know, go out and compete for Shoots and Sneer.
Or what?
I'm probably saying it wrong. My German sucks, but it's a German award, you know. But they call it Schützenschnee.
Ah, Schützenjäger. Yes,
Right.
yes.
And please forgive me if I butchered
No,
that.
don't worry.
So we partner with numerous countries, you know what I mean, and it's good. It builds camaraderie, you know what I mean. Like I said, one of my best friends, he's in the ground self-defense force, and I met him through this bilateral program. I was his sponsor, so he was my responsibility. Not say, I shouldn't say responsibility. He's a grown man, but it was my job to make sure that he knew where to be, what uniform, you know, what we were doing, and we became so close. And like to this day, you know, his wife, my wife, they're friends. Our kids hang out together. You know, we are legitimately best friends now. You know, we even go to jujitsu together. You know, to this day. You know.
So how do Japanese people in general perceive you after the military as a retired soldier, basically?
It was a tough process for me because I kind of felt that it. You know, I'm gonna go into the now. I know I've been giving a lot of praise to Japan, so here comes the like, here comes the cold water, so to speak. But I felt that living here as a civilian, it was a very xenophobic environment. You know what I mean? And when I say that, I felt like, you know, Japanese people felt like if you're not Japanese, you're kind of on the outside looking in. You know, I told you a story about being on a train, and, you know, I hear stories about this and that, about people, and I didn't want to place judgment on that because, like I said, I want to judge people off the people that I know, you know, on the positive note, not the negative, like, but, you know, my neighbors, they totally changed my perspective on that. You know, I go to the local business. I never go to the big business outside of Cane's, but I never go to big business, you know, for certain things. I go to the mom and pop grocery store. I go to this little flower shop to buy flowers for my wife, you know, and these people get to know me. They see my face, and they welcome me as a neighbor. Every morning when I walk to the train, I have, you know, a lot of people is like, "Itterashai," you know, and I'm like, wow, you know, like, I'm not used to this, but you know, it's an awesome feeling for me, you know, and so I kind of got around that, and it had to be explained to me that it's not that Japanese people look at it like Japan should be only for Japanese. No, we were getting these strange looks because they're not used to seeing foreigners. And I was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. And so when we got to that point, you know, I started kind of reevaluating the way I looked at it. And I was like, well, it still feels a little xenophobic, but I'm a little more understanding now.
How are you, Greico?
Well, I think in some cases I see myself a little more negative than the Japanese people see me. One example I can give of that is where I live now is it's mostly houses everywhere. So there's a lot of kids playing around. So if I'm walking, and let's say I'm smoking a cigarette, if I see the children, I'll try to put the cigarette and like tuck it behind my hand. And I'm not going to blow smoke in front of the kids because I don't want them to be influenced negatively by me. But when I see the parents with them, I just try to make sure that I keep my distance from the kids so that no one can see it as something else happening, you know? So this is just the way I see things.
Yeah, but I was just curious to why would you even have to feel that way? You know what I mean? Like
I don't know if it's. That's why I'm saying that I think I'm being more critical on myself in some manners. But there are some times here in Japan where Japanese people have been afraid of me for no reason whatsoever. So it makes me feel that I need to make myself look less threatening as much as possible, especially where I live.
That's an issue. That's another issue. That's a very interesting issue. You know?
So, I mean, one example I can give of that is I was at a train station, and I left the train, and there was a bridge, and I was with a Japanese friend of mine. And we were walking down one end of the bridge, and there was a Japanese male coming down the other side. And when he saw me, he crossed over. So she didn't notice. So we crossed over. He kept walking towards us, and he crossed over again. And then she noticed, and we crossed over again. So then he just turns around and walks away.
With this guy.
But that's just one example. Like I see fear from some people with no basis.
I can attest to that.
But that's not everyone. I see a lot of people that are very nice. They're very open. They're accepting, you know. But when I see certain situations like people turning around or just trying to avoid as much as they can, it makes me want to make myself as less threatening as possible.
Yeah, and
It's
a tough situation, brother.
Rico, what about TIU? What about the Japanese students here? What is the reaction when they know that you're ex-military?
Well, I don't think there's that many people here that actually knows that I'm prior military or a veteran. I mean, there's people that came with me during my semester. They know because of the self-introductions we have to do. Other than that, I'm just Greico. Like, for one, I stay to myself for the most part. But I have no reason to go skipping around. I'm a veteran. So,
You should, man. You should totally do that.
So, I think that here at TIU, I've been pretty welcome.
Well, I'm welcoming.
Okay.
I just want to touch on that, what you said about, making yourself less threatening. I don't feel the need that we have to do that. We shouldn't have to do that at all. And I do understand it is somewhat of a racial divide here a little bit. You know what I mean? As a black man living here now, I see it. Be it real subtle. For instance, we work for a place where, we were just talking, a lot of the advertisements, it's not as diverse as it should be. And a lot of times, even with you guys' school posters, man, like I see a diverse crowd in this room right now, but if I was to judge your university, this university, I would not be able to tell that this is a diverse university. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
And that's an issue. And a lot of times, I do understand that people have a certain view of melanated people, especially here in Japan. It can be thought of as, people, a criminal element or somebody who wants to hurt them. Not everybody's like that. And that's an issue that I really hope and pray that Japan addresses. You know, and not just Japan, like the world, because it's not just because I saw the same thing in Germany, I saw the same thing in Korea. Yeah, but you know, we shouldn't have to make ourselves change to accommodate somebody else's well-being. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying, and just to touch up on what I was saying, because I'm aware that it probably came off. I don't know. I don't really know how to say it, but yeah, I don't feel that I threaten everyone, and it actually, the good very much outweighs the bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I've gotten a lot of interactions as a black male. I've gotten a lot of interactions that haven't been in a fearful way. But it's when I do see the fearful ways that it makes me as a person want to make them feel that they really have nothing to worry about. So I can understand what you're saying. I shouldn't have to change myself.
Yeah, I don't, dude. Like, I mean, to be honest with you, it's like...
But it's where I live. I mean, I'm not changing myself. I just don't want the people where I live to feel threatened for any reason.
Yeah, but that's which is you are changing yourself. Like you changing who you are to kind of please other people, man. And it's like I'm the type of person, man. I believe that, you know, I say this as a black man, you know, we don't just go out like, oh man, who am I gonna beat up today? You know what I mean? Like, nobody wakes up like that. You know what I mean? And I want to be unapologetically who I am. You know what I mean? Like I'm a father first and foremost. I've helped people. I've tried to live my life the right way. And for people to look at me and like, oh man, I don't want my kids around him. You know, like. That bothers me, but I'm like, yo, that's your problem. I'd rather you feel uncomfortable than for me to change who I am to please you. You know what I mean? So that's just my 2 cents, man. I'm sorry. Let's continue.
I think we can all agree that like we've kind of adjusted our personalities to Japanese society.
Somehow. It really influences one if you live in a society which acts that way, always thinking about the other than rather the individual. So yeah, people tend to change. But to wrap this up, I would just like to ask you a very simple question. Do you see you guys staying in Japan, or would you go back to United States?
You wanna?
Okay. Well, once I'm done with school here, I do plan on going back to the U.S. However, that's not going to be my last stop. I like to travel too much to stay in that one country.
Germany.
I'll check it out. I'll check it out. I've heard pretty good things about it.
I'm on his side.
You won't regret it.
Good food.
How about you, Cordell?
For the foreseeable future, man, I'm here as long as the Japanese people allow me to be. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm a father. I have 3 daughters and 3 young daughters, and I feel at this point in time like it's better for them to get educated in their younger years here in Japan compared to being in America. Because and the reason I say that is, you know, Japan consistently ranks high on, you know, education, and I want a piece of that for my girls. You know, it's my job as a father to set them up to be the best that they can be. You know, it's a cold world that we live in. Like, I don't know if y'all know this, but it is. You know, and they're women, so it's gonna be hard. And then they're gonna be black women, so it's gonna be equally hard. You know what I mean? So it's my job to try to prepare them the best I can, and I feel that them being educated here in Japan and in parts of Asia, that I'm doing that.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions or comments at the end of this episode? Would you like to say something, or Anything which comes to your mind?
Japan is not racist. Not completely.
I don't think it's racist at all. You know, I think they have like some tendencies that needs to be addressed, and a lot of times you hear like it's the older crowd, older people in Japan. I think is becoming more globalized here. Like places like in the Kansai. I don't know if you guys been to Osaka yet. Amazing place. Highly recommend it. But you know, I think that time will change, you know, a lot of things. You know, Japan is opening up a lot more, and I think it's gonna blossom into something amazing. You know, a bright light for the rest of the world to follow. You know, if I must say so. You know, only other place that I've been to, and I hate to keep saying it, but it's Germany. You know, like the German people they are amazing. You know what I mean? I had a great time there. You know, very welcoming people.
I think Bastian's blushing.
Yeah,
Aw.
sure.
Okay, one last question.
Go ahead.
Are there McDonald's in the bases?
Yes, yes. McDonald's is
it.
everywhere. McDonald's is everywhere. You know, and
Of course, you would like to ask a question about food.
Taco Bell is better.
yeah,
Taco
it is.
Bell's better.
Do you have that in the base?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Wow.
Nice.
And shout out to those Dorito taco shells. I love those. Cool Ranch. Definitely try those. But if y'all don't mind, I want to give myself a little plug. For anybody who is interested, man, I have a lot of political views that I express on my Twitter account, man. So please follow me at Rankin306. Not Rankin, but RANK at Rank306. And man, feel free to stop by, man. I have a lot of good discussions with a lot of different people around the world.
Thank you. We'll definitely do. Also for you, this was our second episode. You can check as well our Facebook page, Twitter, and as well now on YouTube. You can basically watch this podcast on our YouTube channel, which is Bento Bureau. You can find us on our website, which is www.bentobureau.com. And for the rest of you, you can just continue with basically listening to our podcast on any kind of podcast app you want to, let it be iTunes, Outcast, or whatever. Thanks for joining us, and we're looking forward to see you again. Thank you very much.
ごちそうさまでした。